and welcome back to Tutorials of Tone. My name is Alex. Thank you so much for watching this video. What we're talking about today is the rig that I use live when I fill in for Church of Cash, a world-class Johnny Cash tribute. Say that 10 times fast. This is a really wonderful gig and a super fun rig to develop. There's a lot of vintage style approaches in here and really fun tones to dive into. While I may not be using a Jazz Master for this gig, I am doing my country brethren proud and using this Fender American Telecaster, or on occasion the G&L Comanche when the opportunity arises. Let's dive into this preset and how you can get the most out of your unit to get those cash tones twanging. First up, we have our input block. Everything is at stock settings except the threshold of our gate is at negative 47.5 dB. It's where I like having it for my Morris Music Man guitars, but also this really noisy single coil beast that is the Fender Tele. It's really nice to have a noise gate for a lot of these moments. It may not be vintage, but it is quiet, and I appreciate that. We move then into a Studio FF compressor. Pretty stock settings here, except our ratio is turned up to 10 as opposed to 2. A very heavy compression rate there. The release time is down to 63.25 milliseconds, and our level is compensated at 6.5 dB. This is really nice for just keeping your sound nice and even throughout all of your playing, so you don't have to adjust levels or adjust too dynamically. It's very monochromatic, it's a very particular tone. So it's nice to have this up front. Next up, we have our mono tape delay. This is running before the amp for vintage and authentic slapback tones. We've got this set to a 16th note quantization, 37.5% mix when we are at max, and tied to our input gain, we have an expression pedal throw. This is really nice to dial this in to taste, and having a tap tempo ability tied to this as well, because a lot of songs, a lot of different slapbacks that fall in that category, just like we heard in the intro. And a healthy amount of verb, which we'll get to. Running that mono tape delay into the front of our amp, which is a deluxe reverb on the normal channel. As you can see, the bass knob is turned down quite a bit, and the mids are turned down even further. Master volume is all the way up, and our gain's up just a hair. We want a little bit of bite, but we want as little low end as we can. I had this set to pretty typical settings for what I would use in a country band, and I said, it's probably fine. Constantly turning that bass knob down and down and down during the gig in between songs because the sound just wasn't right. No high cut or low cut to speak of in the amp block. We are running into a pair of 1x12 deluxe reverb cabs with a 57 and a 121 blended evenly. We've got 120 hertz low cut and a 10K high cut. We're running all of that in series to a medium spring reverb. Everything is really stock here, 12.5% mix. But as you can see, there is a modifier on our mix control, bringing the mix from 12.5% to 37.5% mix. Very wet. For this gig, there are a couple songs where you just need a lot of spring verb. So we have our standard sound and our maxed out sound. Very, very Johnny Cash in there. So as you may have noticed, we've skipped over a few of these blocks, but they're all here for a reason, or I wouldn't have them at all. First up in the chain, we have a phase 90, just a standard phaser sort of thing running into the front of the amp, of course. And every now and then, you need to end a song with a nice So if you hold on your FM3, control switch 2, you enact the phaser. Next up in our signal chain, we have our tube screamer, our T808OD in our drive block. As you can see, the drive, tone, and levels are all turned down quite significantly, but our mix is turned up to 100%. This really helps with gain staging, and on a few tunes, this is really necessary to give it that extra bite for authenticity. So if you're playing a standard train beat and you just want to give it a little bit of an augmentation, here you have it. A nice thing to have on any board. Next up in our signal chain, we have our VCA Trem. This was being introduced throughout Johnny's career, as this was being introduced into Fender amps, built right into the amp, and then later with pedals. This is a great thing to have on any country-based rig, so I've placed that between the amp and the cab block as it is a volume effect. That sounds like this. A very hearty 80% depth on this. The rate is turned up to 5.186, my lucky number, but I needed that around 5. We're using a triangle LFO and no level compensation for this block. And at the end of the chain, we have our trusty, rusty, never let us down, 3 dB boost for all leads. This is essential, as there are guitar solos or guitar lines that need to stick out in the mix. Having a 3 dB boost on a control switch at the ready to go, is a wonderful thing to have. Now there's one other secret to this preset that I have yet to mention. We did have our main tone that drives us through 95% of the show. We can kick on the Tube Screamer for 4.99999% of the show, but if you need just that special mojo boost, that thing that'll just push you over the cliff, you hold FC1 and you get fucketh yeah. You get this JP2 C+ red with John Petrucci's lead tone in there. We're running that into a single Mesa Boogie IR. I would traditionally use the traditional with a 121 and I would dial it back a bit, but for this particular band, these particular tones, and for how infrequently I use it, 1 IR is enough. There's a 10K high cut on that cab. This is only for emergency situations, as I've mentioned, but super fun to have and to really just mess with your bandmates every now and then when you've spent so many hours on the road that day. Why not have a little bit of fun? That about does it for this preset and this tutorial of tone. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope that you get to use this when you're next playing a Johnny Cash classic. It's really nice to have authentic vintage tones at the ready. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of them, there are plenty throughout the channel, tutorials of tone, Fractal 101s, gear reviews, playthroughs, etc. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.